And a very good evening to you, and welcome to tonight's edition of Politics 101. I want to welcome all of you wherever you're joining us from, whether you are joining us from Guyana or outside of Guyana. Welcome to Politics 101. Political recklessness. Political recklessness. It continues. We come on air tonight, as you would have picked up in the news, that the government has retaken the PPP's building, the PNC's building in Lethen. This is information I'm reading here on Kaichur Demerara Ways. PNC are kicked out of Lethen building again, but government told to back off. Political recklessness. Political recklessness on the part of the PPP. Not a day passes, and they are not pushing the opposition. Not a day passes that they're not discriminating against African Guyanese. Not a day passes and they're not trying their best to take control of something else in Guyana. Good evening to you. My guest tonight is Lincoln Lewis. I know we've been trying to get Lincoln for a while, and the technology has not been cooperating, but Lincoln is here tonight. Political recklessness. Good evening to you. Good evening to all of you. Today is, of course, Thursday, and welcome to Politics 101. We're not going to waste any time. We're going to get Lincoln Lewis in as quickly as possible. Lincoln, good evening.
Good evening, David. Good evening, viewers, brothers and sisters, friends and well-wishers. We are here to get things going.
How have you been doing?
Well, I tell you something, I'm comforted tonight that we can talk and talk freely.
Yes, thank you much. I know it's been a couple of weeks since Labor Day, and we have not had a chance to talk about Labor Day. And the Trade Union Congress, as part of its message, advanced what it called a 15-point plan. And I want us tonight to talk about that 15-point plan, because often, one of the things I learned from Guyana is that you must always have a plan. I remember when the government changed in 1992, he said the opposition, and I can't remember whether he said African Guyanese, might have been African Guyanese, but African Guyanese should now organize and fight with a plan in hand. And so when I saw that 15-point plan, I remembered Guyana. Now, what was the message at this year's Labor Day?
It was merely, let me say, a plan to really retake our stake in this society, economically, socially.
I mean the
workers, and not only workers. The trade union in itself is an organization that influences the economic, social, and cultural and political decisions in society. So when we talk, people will tell us at times that we are political. But what people fail to understand is that the trade union, which is the precursor to the political parties in this country, the mass-based political parties, started the march for one man, one vote. Adults, universal adult suffrage, as we know it to be, and an 8-hour work day, 40-hour work week, holiday with pay, and all these type of things. They were not given. It was the trade union who fought for them and started the march since 1926, during the colonial period, when it becomes known. So there are issues that you may want to say that border on political agenda, but I'll tell you what: if we don't influence the political and take up our place in the political atmosphere, we are going to be shut out, totally shut out. And one needs to understand that if a man is working, say at Monishwa, he's expected to work 8 hours when the day comes. And when he leaves work, he get a bad road to go in at Eccles. And then when he meet home, he get blackout. That worker cannot be a satisfied worker the next day to perform at his optimum the next day at work. So all these things here, while there are rules you may have to follow at the workplace, there are certain social benefits or political decisions that are being made from time to time that impact his well-being. So the trade union has more an overarching role than just confined to those things at the political, at the workplace. Has to look at the things outside, like education, like health services, and all these type of things, because they impact on making you a good and satisfied worker. So these issues that we are talking about.
And I noticed the first point on your plan is about Article 13. It says here, legislation to give meaning to Article 13. Talk a little bit about why that is the first thing on the 15-point plan and the linkage between Article 13 and the trade union movement.
Let me come back to you. There are only two organizations that are named by name in the current constitution. And those organizations are the trade union and cooperative. If you go back to the constitution, we'll observe that. And the framers of the constitution did not do it by accident, but because of the historical development of this country. They recognize that those two institutions have played a significant role in shaping what we are, shaping who we are today. Article 13, which speaks to the political, which speaks about the political process, or how we go about our political, speaks about inclusionary democracy. It speaks about one need to be consulted and be involved in decision making that impact its political, economic, and social life. Article 30 speaks to that. While Article 75 to 77 speaks about regional development, right? 149C speaks about the role of the trade union, right? Let me say to you that Article 13 is the overarching giving you, saying to you how you will govern whosoever been elected to office, how you will govern this country. You will have to consult with the parties, get them involved, and consult with them as you go along on decision making or what we like to have. Like, for instance, we have something glaring in front of us today where the court has taken a section of this society has been up in arms about the environmental agreement between the government, the environmental permit that has been given by the EPA and to Exxon. And what has happened is that while the court has said that they need to respect what the law says, the government intends to go contrary to that. What they are doing In essence, they are destroying the fabric or the intent and purpose of Article 13. Article 13 says the people must be consulted. You don't just do things like that. So that in itself, Article 13, is absolutely important as we move on to get things done in society. We are saying that they must put teeth to it, put context to what we're doing, put things to it, put meat to it, and let's get it done. Put a framework in place. For instance, as I made reference to 75, 77, we speak about the regional development system, the regional development council. Since 1980 Constitution, nothing more has been done. Since the Constitution was promulgated there. The Constitution says very clear in that respect that the region shall develop its financial plan and central government shall fund it. What central government does, they don't do anything. What they do is when the region develops its plan, they will say, we don't like this region. It's not our support. We don't have a lot of support from there, so we're going to cut the budget. We're going to take out this, we're going to take out that, and there's nothing you can see. I'm saying to you that we have to anchor whatever we do in Article 13 of the Constitution.
And I hear you. Article 13, of course, was put there as a result of the constitutional reform that occurred over 20 years ago. But what everyone has been saying, including people who advocate for Article 13, just as you have, is that it's not enforceable. How do you plan to make it enforceable? How do you plan to get
we need to go to the parliament. We need to go to parliament and make laws. Like, for instance, we have proposed, we said, look, the budget, which has been passed by which is the economic, virtually the economic plan for a year, is being passed with a simple majority. We are saying, no, let us have 2/3 majority from the House to pass a budget, which will force parliamentarians to walk across the aisle, and we will get at the end of it a product that belong to the people, the constituents. Another product belong to what we call the majority in parliament. This government, for instance, has a 1-seat majority, but it wants to make all the decisions as to what must happen, who get what, when, and how, right? I'm saying that these are the type of legislation that we need. I've given you one here that we need to have, so that we can change the way business is being done.
And I like that whole thing about the budget, because you know, a budget is probably the single most important document that any government can prepare. And to have a budget in the kind of society that, like ours, to have it with just a simple majority, I think is a travesty and certainly flies in the face of real, inclusive, substantive democracy. And so I think that is a very, 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 very good proposal. But I come back to Article 13. Are you in support of constitutional reform to make Article 13 enforceable?
I am in support of putting laws in place to make it enforceable.
Yes, that's what
I'm prepared to put laws in place. I support any mission, right? Any measure that can put system in place to make sure that Article 13 is respected.
And so therefore, constitutional reform becomes important. You've talked about the budget. You're talking here in number 5, legislation to realize affirmative action, including commissions to ensure equity in employment opportunities in the public and private sectors. talk to us about affirmative action.
Let me say to you that there are groups that are disenfranchised in this society. Let me don't behave as if we live in Mars. We live in Guyana. We live in Guyana where, for instance, what has been reported to me over the last week, that the instructions that have been given to Central Housing and Planning says that, look, commercial lots must not be given to African people. If you were given 100 lots to African people, cut them back by a third. That's the information. And let me tell you something. You may want to ask me for evidence, but let me make this point to you. As said before, we don't live in Mars. We live right here. And everything that happens, people come out and people talk. While people may carry out the instruction in some way, they may be dissatisfied. So they come out, and people like me, they will call me and tell me these are the instructions, because they are not satisfied with it. We live in a society here where, for instance, in the economy, since during the time of Chedi Jigan, he has been making the point that, look, what we have had is a situation where the Africans are down at the lower rung of the social and economic ladder. We're saying that if you're conscious of that, then what it requires is a level of parity need to exist. What you need to do is to put systems in place, affirmative systems in place for a group like the African people, to make sure that they get a greater bite at the cherry than to keep them where they are, right? We cannot be doing it. We need to, these are the reasons, some of the reasons why you need affirmative action in the system. We have to have.
What about Amerindians?
We can't say, and this thing, and I didn't get it, David.
What about Amerindians? Affirmative
I don't have a problem with Amerindians. I'm saying all of that. Affirmative action for groups that are disenfranchised in any way. You don't tell me that the rules say that if you below 15 acres of land, you don't have to apply, you don't have to get a business plan to have a lease for 15 and less land. The rule is of that nature. But if I apply for 15 acre, you don't tell me that I cannot get 15 acre because I don't have the means to do ABC. But the other man who is outside there, coming from another group, can get 100 acre with 100 acres without even putting in a business plan. I'm saying that these are type of things that we have to look at. Affirmative action must take into consideration only the question of the dollar and cents, contracts and what have you, but it must take into consideration also the distribution of land, state land, and all these other things. We must look at them. That's what we must do.
So you're talking about ethnic affirmative action, ethno-racial affirmative action. What about social class affirmative action?
Yeah,
should there be affirmative action for poor people regardless of race?
Yes, because let me say to you, in our situation here, we are talking about cash transfer and a number of things that need to be done, right? When we talk about cash transfer, we don't only talk about you giving X amount of dollars to an individual. We are talking about issues of such nature as like free education. The people who were able to send their children to do masters, many of the people, because they have money, or the poor people children got to find a scholarship. Somebody who won't give them a scholarship, some agency that won't give them a scholarship, right? What we're saying, free education is being put to the disposal of people in this country, can go from nursery right on to university. We can do it like that, right? Those are things that we got to like that. Like the question of health. Health, they tell you now that what they're going to do is that if you have, there's a backlog in the public hospitals, right? For surgery and so on. They'll make arrangements for you to go to the private hospitals to have that done. But when you're going to the private hospital, that is still a decision that a politician got to make. Whether you're going to go to the hospital or not, right? This decision, the politician got to make that. We are saying that, look, we don't want a system where the politician got to make decision, because the politician got to make decision, or you got to give instruction to somebody to get it. You got to put on a red jersey and walk around the place before you can get anything done. What we say, the public hospitals and clinics, they must be well equipped with ultrasound and everything that we do. We don't have to, when the doctor say that he wants to carry out, get an ultrasound, you got to go to the big hospitals, the private hospitals, and you got to fork out the money to go and pay for it, right? Those are type of things like that we want to look at. We want to look at the whole question of PAYE, right? We want children, we must start getting what we call it, credit, or get deductions must be made for children who are under 18 years of age. We want to look at that. We want to look at unemployment benefit. Poor people that lost a job and you got to walk between one job to the other to find another job. You got to scrun because there's nothing there to help you. What we're saying is that, look, activate the unemployment element in the NIS. Activate it, that people can get at least a 6 months, if they're going after a job, to get a 6 months coverage that they can earn something and they don't have to go further back into poverty. So that's another area. We are talking also about this whole question here of what we call it VAT. We can move out VAT, reduce it or move it out. We have to do something of that nature. It requires you doing it. If we don't do it, as the food prices go up, many of us will not be able to buy anything or do anything, right? We can, the prices are getting skyrocketing to the point that we're not going to be able to do what is expected of us as head of family and all these type of things, right? So these are type of things that these are some of the things that we want to look at, right? These are some of the things we want to look at.
Lincoln Lewis here tonight talking about a 15-point plan that was unveiled on Labor Day by the Guyana Trade Union Congress. Please share the link and let everyone know that we are on tonight. Politics 101 is on tonight. As we come on air tonight, we are hearing that the government is retaking the PNC's building in Lethen. Political recklessness. Mr. Lincoln Lewis, have you heard that news, and what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I want to tell you, I want to take every space in this society. It is not only Lethem. These people, it was yesterday, they were in a Belladrum trying to take over a CDC building, right? The CDC is a registered organization, not registered under the Friendly Society Act, right? It's a legal entity, not registered under. they can, and it seems as if they're not thinking. The building in itself, they have received a grant, I believe, from the community. They received a grant, and my understanding is that citizens from the Weldad El Dorado district who are overseas made significant contribution by way of finances to get this thing done. And now they believe that they're in government, so they can take it away and they will appoint some. They want to make it in a party office. They want to put the people to work inside. This is how the PPP. This is the PPP's behavior. And the faster we come to realize what these guys are offering, and many of us who are prepared to say give them a chance or to dance with them, we are dancing at our own peril. These guys we got to repel them.
We've got to repel them. Lincoln, in one of the points, I think point 9, you come back to the issue of the right to join trade unions and the right of trade unions to engage in collective bargaining. Talk about that point.
Let me tell you what. Let me give you an example of something. The Guyana Bauxite and General Workers Union was the only union that was able to break into the oil and gas industry, where they organized all the drivers who are driving the expatriate staff, and those people come under civil taxi service. We were able to organize them. The ministry, when the union applied for recognition, asked them specifically to bring their books, because they bring the books and the survey was done. The union got 60-something%. And what they did, they brought all the drivers who were outside, the list with all the drivers who were outside the bargaining unit that the union asked for, They bring all of them. They brought all of them to the Ministry of Labor, for the Trade Union Recognition Board. They brought them because the larger the number, it's more likely that you may lose, you may not be able to make the 40% that the law requires. They didn't confine it to the drivers alone who are driving the expat. They bring the local, who are working in the local community. They put all together. But the union was able to get 62% when they did the survey. They were able to get 62%. After they realized that, and we started negotiations, they came with the idea that we had applied only for the staff from who are driving the expats. But the survey, the recognition is given for the entire bargaining unit. Yes, for the entire company. Yes, it was given because the board has the authority to say, this is where you put in front of the board, and the board made the decision. And that was failed to understand. They made the decision that, look here, what you have here, we will give for the entire bargaining, the entire company. So the entire company got it. The moment they started challenging under the coalition government, and they didn't get through. The moment that the government changed, you know what they did? They went to the Trade Union Recognition Board, and the Trade Union Recognition Board, without even calling the trade union that is involved, terminated the agreement, the recognition agreement. Terminated it. And you know what? When it was challenged, they said that it was unanimously agreed that it be terminated. That means that the 3 trade union representatives who were on the board, all 3 of them agree that the government must terminate the agreement, the recognition certificate that was issued to the the union. So we have people who are working against it. Having said that, we are seeing in the society where they don't want to negotiate with a number of unions. Like, for instance, the teachers' union. They don't want to negotiate with the teachers' union. They don't want to negotiate with the public service union. They don't want to negotiate with the bauxite union. They don't want to negotiate with any union except GAU or NASI. Every other union, they don't want to negotiate. What we need to do is to put laws in place that can address these issues, strengthen the laws to make sure that we are as a unions, we are protected from the skullduggery of this government. So this is basically,
yes, you call here to expand the school meal program to provide a daily balanced lunch for school children from nursery to secondary for all public schools. Parents could opt in or out. Speak to that. What is the thinking behind?
Yes, what we're saying that, let me say to you that there are a number of children who go to school or live with one meal, and a number of homes, poverty is of such that while political operatives many will not want to accept it, it do happen. A lot of children go to school without a meal. For them to be going to school and have to scrounge for a meal, it will be the better thing for us who have, for the state that has our money, to put a program in place to make sure that meals are there, is there for children. As we said there, that you can opt in or opt out, right? A parent may say, look here, I can provide. There are many parents who cannot provide. There are many people who are working for $100,000 a month, and they have 4 children. It can be a single family. It can be there may be a mother and a father in a home, but they're making $200,000 when the month comes, and they have a lot of ends to meet. I'm saying that education is a human right issue, and what we need to do is to make sure that each child be given that break. He must go to school because they are sure that they will get something to eat. No child must be staying home because the parents can't afford to buy a meal and to pay the transportation to go there. We have to change it. We have a responsibility to this society.
You also called for the reduction of the cost of transportation, especially for children, for electricity, for gas prices. And you call for the introduction of a public transport system which would create competition and alternative, and more so aid the vulnerable in the society. Expand on that.
Let me start by telling you that there are times, the elderly who may want to move from one point to the other, may be standing on the road. We know the culture that we have. It's a culture where the minibus driver said, that person, no where the old woman, man, left you there. She's still a citizen of this country. And she or he is still a citizen, and we need to treat them well. As society, let me go on to tell you that when you pass at the Palms, it's a reflection of how we treat the elderly, right? Either in a bad state. All that we are asking here for is that let us don't remain at the level of where the palms is. Let us move it beyond that. When it comes to transportation, move and get public transportation in place. People can move from one point to the other. They may be, and I always argue that subsidizing a national airline, or what we call subsidy for a national airline, is important, because as a citizen you will have to move from, say, Georgetown to Lethem or somewhere in Region 9, and it's only plane you can go with at that time. And if the airline, the national airline, cannot do it, it's not there, then the prices are going to be exorbitant and you will not be able to make it. Let us transfer that to the issue of the bus. We build roads, and we're talking about all these highways that we build, right? And building those highways, that means that you are saying to us that we can move by bus or by motor vehicle from one point to another, from Georgetown to Lethem. We cannot just sit down and say that is a private sector responsibility. The state has a responsibility for that transportation, to put transportation in place, to make sure that we have a choice. We have the public transportation, and we can look for private also. On the issue of that we talk about there, about even in that issue we talk about, and then we spoke about electricity. People can, the prices for the electricity rates are too exorbitant. Something has to be done. We said now that we pull in gas, we put in oil and gas. We got to start making reform, do a total reformation of our power generation system. Not only the generation, but the whole question of transmitting it to the consumers. And we can't sell it at that price. We got to look at that, right? Definitely. On the question of gas, we pay. All these things need to be looked at. And if we put the money and if you call it subsidy or what to it, it is one form of cash transfer to the citizens of this country. And we need to look at that. We cannot allow it to go. And one of our problems is that we always cop out. And the government put it in so they know best. They don't know better than us. We are the people who feel in it. Right? And because we feel it, we must talk about it. We must agitate for change in the approach towards it. That's what we're talking about.
Okay. You also talk here about low interest soft loans for new home owners. Are you
Yeah.
Yes.
Look, man.
You're talking about provide property owners with direct and indirect cash transfer through interest-free or very low interest rate soft loans to improve and to maintain their residencies. That's enough.
Yeah. When you build a house, you just got to repair it. Yeah. When you build a house, you just got to repair it. You got to do it. Let me say to you, we have to improve the aesthetics, like in the villages, the towns and our neighborhoods. We have to improve them. We can't have people building new houses and allow them to deteriorate because the mortgage is high and we can't pay. The interest rate on mortgages is so high that we can't pay. We can't spend some money to do home improvement maintenance and those type of things. We have to do that. We are saying that, look, you can move. We have money now. Don't tell us that we're becoming a Dubai. Don't dupe us into that position. What we need to do, and don't tell us as though they dupe us and tell us that the contract between, when they had wanted a vote, they dupe us by telling people that this contract between Exxon and the Guyana government is so bad. But when they get to office, the same bad contract, they become the greatest defenders of that contract. Here we want. We don't want you to promise me anything. We want you to do this. We get a house and we want to maintain this house. We get streets and around the street, we want them maintained. Don't promise us that when you get more money, what you get now, you can start putting a system in place where everybody can benefit. This money, this issue about loans, interest-free loans, they will tell you that we up the ceiling to 15 million for low income. But when you go to the bank, when you go to that bank, one of the things you got to do, you have to satisfy the bank that you get the capacity to repay. And a person who get working for $20,000 a year, a month, won't get a $50 million loan. $50 million loan. So here is one way of duping us too, of telling us that we can get $50 million. We put the system in place for first-time borrowers or what have you to have that. You won't get it, right? We are moving beyond that to say to you, here we will turn this thing out. We can look at soft loans. We can look at low interest loans. We can look at grants and all these type of things. You know, let me just take you back a moment. In 1976, the unions in the bauxite industry and Guy Mines signed that collective labor agreement. While the unions were looking for something like about 18% increase, they ended up with a 6%. And you know what came out of it? Is that you had what you call a housing fund. Money was put to the housing fund. And at low interest rate, I believe 2% interest, 2% interest rate, and people, this was a revolving fund, and people were borrowing to build houses and what have you, but it had another element of it. The other element of it spoke to 25 persons each year would have been given a 6,000, based on a formula, you would have arrived at a situation where 25 persons would have had $6,000 grant and a $6,000 loan. $6,000 grant and a $6,000 interest free loan. And at that time, $12,000 could have built a house. I'm saying to you, there are examples in this system where we can do that. The Sugar Industry Welfare Fund as a form now, what we call, they give you loans, and they are soft loans, not the loans at the level of the commercial bank. I'm saying that we can do it. We have done it in the system. There are examples, and we must seek to emulate them. Let us go back to the drawing board. Don't tell us that we got to go to the commercial bank and pay 4, 6, and 8%. That's it.
What about the deficit, the NIS deficit? How does that fit into your 15-point plan?
Well, we are saying that must be, because the decisions over the years not to implement the actuarial recommendations, the NIS went into a deficit. Those are decisions of the government. The government not to increase contribution. We're saying to them, look, now that we get the money, real money, wipe off the deficit, wipe it off, that people can turn back and get now a decent pension. Not some people getting an $18,000 pension when the month come, or a $30 or a $28,000 pension when the month come. Let them get a decent pension, and let us do this type of study that the pension from the NIS, the minimum of the NIS, or the pension from the NIS must be almost at the equivalent of the minimum wage. The minimum wage and the minimum pension should be about the same level. That's how we should be looking at this thing.
Free education from nursery to university.
Yes, it's in the Constitution, Article 27. And you are telling me now we have what you call something named gold scholarship. And what gold scholarship does is that when you apply, they will determine if you will get it and which university or education institution you must go, right? If we have, rather than taking this thing and send it all over the place and giving to people, institution, we have a national institution. We have the University of Guyana. We have a number of institutions in this country, like the GITC, GTI, New Amsterdam Technical Critical Labor College, all around the place. Fund these institutions that at the end of time, you don't have to say that we don't have enough skills here, so we got to go to Sri Lanka, Philippines, or India to bring people. Let us look at a national program. That national program must be involved, must take Guyana, a model, and if possible, we must have not only a campus in quarantine, that must be improved, but we must go to Linden too. If you're going to talk about mining, it may be good for you to put a university in Linden, in Region 10, that deals with mining. You know, so these are some thoughts that we have on this situation. We can't allow people, you know, because I'll tell you what will happen. The scholarships that you're going to get to the Ivy League University, they will all be marked up by the privilege, the political operatives, and the privilege. Their children will get it. We must stand up and make the university here a model that we all can be proud of. Pay decent salaries, different salaries that we can attract. Good lecturers, good researchers, build the capacity, the research capacity of the university in medicine, engineering, and every damn thing. We have to do that. We can't just sit down and everything we're looking outside of the borders, and then we say borders for answers. Yet at the same time, we're telling you that we're gonna make Guyana is the next Dubai. They like slogan. Where we want is action. What we want is results. Results that need to develop.
Lincoln, how was this 15-point plan received by the workers?
Well, I want to tell you something. You know, people have been calling me to say to me that we need to move beyond the talk. Like yesterday, I was downtown, and I was crossing over from the Guyana stores to go to Fogarty's. When I meet around that roundabout there, a young lady stopped me. She said, "Mr. Lewis, I listened to you on Labor Day. I like what you have said." She said, "I'm 27 years of age. I'm working for $110 a month. $110,000 a month. I'm going to the University of Guyana. I can't afford to pay for that education. I got to drop a lot of things. I got to beg my family overseas to help me that we can pay my tuition. I have an interest in the, what we call it, in the free education that you spoke about. What is the trade union doing about it? I'm prepared to join the march for it. Can I have your number? I will call you. I will call you. I will remind you about it. I use that as an example for you to understand how people get not sold, but get attached to it. Everybody, every person who have their own interests. Like this morning, these things happen often. You know, I was driving down the, what we call and there was this guy at the lobby, and he said to me, "Mr. Lewis, how you do?" I said, I'm trying. He said, "Can I have a word with you?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You know, I like how you put it. The $1 million Professor Thomas talk about. You saying that if 5 people live in a house, we can end up with $200,000 per person if they pay that $1 million." He said, "People telling me about inflation and all these type of things." He said, "Here, let me tell you something. I can do with it $200,000. I can do with it because what I get in right now can't meet my needs." These are the type of comments and reaction that you're getting. And each day that I go around the place, these things, these reactions are thrown at me.
Are you
Right,
going
David.
to are you going to engage the government on these proposals?
We have already written the government. We have written the government. We have written political parties. Each one, all of them, by weekend ought to be in a position to give a reaction to what we're talking about. We have to do something. We can't leave this thing like this. Let me tell you something. Polydor used to say, "Let us march." This time, it's all of us will have to hold hands. I don't know if we're going to march or we're going to fly, but this has to be action by not only the trade unions, but for society at large, want to benefit.
Are you trying to get your sister trade union umbrella organization FITOG on board with these proposals?
In this situation here, every soldier is necessary. We will have to get everybody, apprise every person about what is taking place and what our intentions are. We have to do it. Even David Hines, Politics 101, Mark Benskop, Straight Up, Shara Duncan, Gordon Mosley, and every other one, even NCN. We are going to be everybody. This needs a national campaign. This is about putting the people first.
putting people first. Lincoln Lewis here walking us through the 15-point plan unveiled by the Trade Union Congress, TUC, on Labor Day. And it's quite a comprehensive plan. It's one that goes beyond the remit of the traditional trade unions. And certainly, as Lincoln said at the beginning of the program, the trade union has to move beyond its traditional role. Anything else you would like to tell our viewers tonight, Lincoln, as we wind down?
Let me say to the viewers that we have a responsibility of as trade union leaders, but these issues are not outside, but these issues are issues that impact on the society in general. And it is for this reason we will be coming to communities to talk with you about what we are doing, the reason behind this. We don't intend to, this here is not a partisan political issue. The issue of cash transfer. It is not an act of advancing for a specific race or community. It is advancing primarily for the people of this country. Because I'll tell you what, if the poor man can't provide meals for his children and a good education, what we may well have a situation where those children become recalcitrant and they may turn to crime. Who are the people who they will attack? They will attack the rich and the privileged, or those who are at a certain status, in economic status, financial status in society. They will go after them. So it is important that the man who may have seek to embrace a program that delivers for the people who do not have. We have to look at it that way. And in this process, what we're doing is holding hands to make life better for all of us. That may happen. The rich man or the privileged man may have a daughter who may be privileged to do certain things, to get certain things. But yet at the same time, she may be in love with a man who may not be rich, or his family is privileged to give him all that ought to be done.
Lincoln Lewis there. Discussing tonight is 15-point plan. Lincoln, thanks for coming on and to sharing this plan with us. And as you know, you're welcome here. We shall be checking in with you from time to time to see what progress you are making. As you said, you've written to the government, the political parties, and all the stakeholders. We shall be checking in with you.
Thank you,
and to your viewers, as usual, I want to say thank you for staying with us. Thank you for being faithful viewers and supporters of Politics 101. We're going to sign off tonight, but we'll be back tomorrow, Friday. Until then, as we always say, we love you, we love you, we love you, we love you.